One of my favorite spring vegetables that you can find in season, especially around the farmer's market season, is asparagus. And I did not realize how simple and easy to grow this vegetable is, especially for us here in Kentucky. We can actually grow these very, very easily, and you can have it for years to come because it is going to be a perennial vegetable for us here in Kentucky. So today I just want to talk about a few things that you will need to remember if you consider growing asparagus for your Kentucky garden, and ways to help you be more successful with that growing asparagus. So asparagus, like I said, is a perennial vegetable, so it's very, very crucial that you get your soil prepped and sited just correctly, so that way it'll be coming back year after year after year. So for soils for asparagus, usually we want to stay in the pH range of anywhere from 6.2 to about 6.8, and it's really important that you locate your asparagus patch or particular row of asparagus in an area that receives full sunlight. So anywhere from at least 6 hours of sunlight to hopefully 8 hours of sunlight. And it's really important that those soils be well drained. Here in Kentucky, sometimes that's not the most ideal situation that we have. So if you don't have an area that drains really well, you might want to consider going to a raised bed garden situation where simply the soil has been raised about 6 to 8 inches above the ground, so that way that you can grow these asparagus, so that way that they don't get crown rots and things like that, which is very easy to do if you don't have a good, properly well-drained soil. So after you kind of looked at those sites, maybe even incorporated or taken a soil test of that soil to see if you're right in that perfect range of 6.2 to 6.8, you can then look at when's the best time to plant those asparagus. So there's a couple of different varietals of asparagus that you might want to look at. One of those being seed, or you can actually put out some crowns. So usually, sometimes older gardeners will say seed is usually the best way to go. It's just going to take you a little bit longer. So Extension really recommends that you put either 1 to 2 year old crowns out in the garden, so that way you kind of get a jump start, and it's usually the easiest way that you can perfect that particular type of asparagus. So when you're looking at different varieties of asparagus, we've got a couple of different selections. The best one though is an all-male hybrid. Usually they're known as Jersey. So there's like Jersey Giant, Jersey Knight. All the Jerseys are all male, because if you look to something like a Mary or Martha Washington, those simply are female. So a lot of the times they'll produce seed, and usually that energy goes to the seed rather into the actual spears that you're hopefully trying to grow, and that way that you can consume later on. So really look towards the all-male hybrids, such as the Jersey varieties. Here you can see one that I picked up here at a local garden center just locally. And so this one is all green, so you can see the spears are going to be green in color. But if you want something a little bit sweeter, there's also one that's out there that's called Purple Passion. It's purple in color, but when you cook it, it's going to turn green. But again, it's going to have a sweeter texture to it, so it's kind of going to set itself apart from the Jersey particular varieties. So these are really easy to pick up. Usually most of the time that they're packaged, and they've got a lot of different type of details on the back of it. So after you pick up your asparagus, you want to again look at planting those asparagus crowns typically in March, sometimes early February if the conditions are favorable for those spring plantings. Again, you want to make sure that you have that soil prepped and ready to go, because this is a perennial vegetable. But try to get out there as soon as you can, because I know spring weather here in Kentucky is not usually a little bit wet. So again, let those soils dry out before you get ready to work the tiller through it, or if it's a raised bed, work in a shovel or anything like a hoe. So whenever you break into these packaging, you'll see that there's some sawdust there, and I've peeled back just the plastic just a second ago, and I pulled them out just to show you kind of what these crowns look like. Now really, you're probably thinking, Kristen, that doesn't look like anything like a crown. To me it looks like almost like a broom, in the fact that, you know, it's got different root structures to it. Really it's kind of like fleshy rhizomes, and it contains a lot of the root, but the crown or the growing point is what you see right here in the center. So it's really important that you get that above ground and you keep the roots directly below the ground, because that's how that the plant is going to obtain all of its nutrients. So you can see I pulled back some of the dirt there. It's really important, again, that when you get ready to plant these particular type of roots out in the soil here in Kentucky, that you properly spread those roots out, because a lot of the times they're packaged, and oftentimes they've got rubber bands and things around it. So you just want to work that loose and make sure you properly spread it out. And again, you keep the growing point above ground, because again, you don't want crown rot to form. So anyway, with that, especially when you're digging your particular spot for your asparagus, you want to make sure that you go about 6 inches deep, and you are building a trench. You want to look to about 12 to 15 inches wide, so that way that you can get a proper, root establishment there. You probably want to spread those out so that way it's properly anchored in the ground to obtain those nutrients. You just want to fill the soil around it, and then as it starts to grow, you're going to add more soil around that. So a lot of times people just want to plant one row and kind of get that working, and then they go to maybe planting another one once they feel more comfortable. Now, after you plant these, usually you want to wait a full year. You don't want to harvest any type of spears, because again, you're trying to get that root system in the ground. You don't want to harvest any spears like that. You may see a few that pop up and you get excited, but you just want to make sure that you wait, because it's really important and crucial that first year. Now, the second year, you can go ahead, after that spring planting, the second year you can go ahead and harvest, usually for about 2 weeks, and then the third growing season you can harvest for about a 4-week period, and then again go to an 8-week period after that. Usually when you're snapping off the spears at the base of where the growing point is, you basically just want to snap it off. Sometimes people will look towards using knives and things like that, but sometimes that can hurt those particular crowns. So that's why it's just simply easy just to break those off. And just to kind of illustrate, these are some asparagus spears that we purchased at the grocery store. So once you snap it off from the growing point, it just snaps just really, really easy like that. So it's really simple to harvest, and you can bring it indoors. And this is a great vegetable. It contains a lot of nutrients for your body, a lot of different nutrients, and again, it's one of the earliest vegetables that we have here in Kentucky. You definitely don't want to miss out. If you have any questions whatsoever about growing asparagus or how to take care of it, watering it, fertilizing it, we have a great resource for you guys to pick up. It's the Home Vegetable Gardening Guide. This is a free resource that's offered here at our Cooperative Extension Service here in Morgan County. You can also pick it up if you are in another area, absolutely free. It's everything from asparagus to watermelon. All the information is right here in this handy dandy guide. So stop by and see us, pick up a Home Vegetable Gardening Guide, maybe pick up some other recipes, but you want to make sure you keep watching, because Joanna Coles is going to show you how to take it from the garden to gourmet with her asparagus ham quiche, and I highly advise you check it out because it's absolutely delicious. Hope you have a happy gardening season.